Ere lay in the dim room, her breath shallow, her once bright skin now dull. Eber sat by her side, holding her frail hand tightly, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. Erhi's voice was barely a whisper. "I thought the city would make me a star. I didn't know it would swallow me." Her words cracked like dry wood. Mama knelt by the bedside, her hands shaking as she wiped Erhi's forehead with a damp cloth, murmuring prayers under her breath. Eber felt a rage she couldn't name. At the city, at the men who used her sister, at herself for not holding Erhi back. But all she could do was hold her tighter, whispering through tears, "You'll get better, Erhi. We'll take you home. We'll fix this." But Erhi shook her head slowly, her eyes glassy. "I'm tired. If I could go back, I would stay in Otukpo. I would stay with you." The weight of her regret hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. That night, the generator outside coughed and died, plunging the room into darkness. Eber sat in silence, her hand gripping Erhi's, her heart pounding in the stillness. Erhi stirred once, her eyes fluttering open for a brief moment. She looked at Eber, a faint smile on her cracked lips, and whispered, "Sister, I love you." Then her breath shuddered and stopped. A low wail rose from Mama's chest, raw and haunting, filling the room with a sorrow that seemed to shake the walls. Eber froze, disbelief crashing over her like cold water. She shook Erhi gently, whispering her name, begging her to wake up. But Erhi's body was still, her face peaceful, as if she had drifted into a dream she would never wake from. The city lights outside continued to glow, indifferent to the pain that now consumed Eber's heart. They brought Erhi's body back to Otukpo, a small wooden coffin on the back of a pickup truck. The village gathered in stunned silence. Some whispered, "The city took her." Others shook their heads, murmuring about dreams that turned to dust. Mama could barely walk, leaning on Eber as they approached the grave dug behind their house. Eber's hands trembled as she held her sister's scarf, the one Erhi wore the day she left. It still smelled faintly of her, and Eber pressed it to her face, tears soaking the fabric. After the burial, the elders gathered and made a strange decision. She was the bright one, the flame. Her spirit cannot rest unless her sister carries it. They spoke in hushed tones, turning to Eber. "From now on, you will bear your sister's name. You must take her name, her dreams, her destiny." Eber felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. They wanted her to step into her sister's shoes, to become the twin who left. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "But I am Eber. I am peace." The elders shook their heads firm. "You are Erhi now. Let her dreams not die in vain." And so, Eber's identity began to blur, caught between who she was and who they expected her to become. In the days that followed, Eber, now called Erhi by the village, felt like a stranger in her own skin. People looked at her differently, expecting her to be bold, to sing like Erhi, to chase the dreams her sister had left behind. But inside, Eber's heart was heavy, filled with guilt and grief. She wore Erhi's clothes, smiled Erhi's smile, but every night, she cried into her pillow, whispering, "I am not Erhi. I am not her." Mama, too, seemed lost. She called Eber Erhi, her eyes shining with pride but also pain. Eber wanted to scream, "I'm still here. I'm still Eber. But she bit her tongue, swallowed her tears, and tried to carry the name. The weight of it crushed her. And as the days turned into weeks, Eber felt her own self fading, swallowed by the ghost of her sister. She wondered, was this what the gods wanted? For her to live half a life, wearing a name that wasn't hers? The questions gnawed at her, but the village had spoken. And so, she played the part. But inside, a storm was brewing. One evening, as Eber sat by the river, lost in thought, Otukpo, who had come with them for Erhi's burial, approached quietly. He sat beside her, his voice low. I heard what they call you now, Erhi. She nodded, her eyes on the water, the reflection of the setting sun blurring her tears. But you don't look like her anymore, he continued. You look tired, broken. His words hit her like a slap. Eber turned to him, her voice sharp. What do you know? You didn't know her. You didn't know me. Otukpo sighed, his eyes sad. I knew enough, and I know this. You can't live your life carrying someone else's name. It will crush you. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Leave Otukpo, Eber. Start over. You deserve your own story. Eber's breath caught. The thought of leaving, of breaking free from the weight of Erhi's memory, was terrifying, but also tempting. As the river flowed silently past them, Eber stared into the distance, torn between duty and the desperate need to breathe as herself. And for the first time, a seed of rebellion stirred in her chest. The next festival of drums came, but this time, it felt like a shadow of what it once was. The elders insisted Eber perform. After all, she was now Erhi, and the village expected her to dance as her sister had. They dressed her in Erhi's bright wrapper, painted her face, and pushed her onto the stage. The drums thundered, the crowd clapped, but Eber felt hollow inside, like a puppet on a string. As she twirled under the moonlight, her heart screamed in silence. She wasn't Erhi. She was Eber, the quiet one, the helper, the peacekeeper. The weight of her sister's name was suffocating her. And when the final drumbeat echoed into the night, she stumbled breathless, tears filling her eyes. The villagers cheered, thinking it was part of the performance. But Mama sat in the corner, her hands clutched together tightly, her face tight with a pain she couldn't voice. That night, Eber lay in bed, the applause still ringing in her ears like a curse. She wondered, how much longer could she pretend? Eber avoided the mirror in her room, but one morning, she couldn't resist. She stared at her reflection, at the beads, the wrapper, the earrings that once belonged to Erhi. For a moment, she imagined she was her sister, bold and fearless. But then she saw her own eyes, tired, hollow, filled with grief. She touched her face, whispering, "Who am I now?" And the tears came fast, soaking her blouse. Mama walked in, saw her crying, and mistook her tears for something else. "Ah, my Erhi, don't cry. You are making us proud." Erbao wanted to scream, to tell her mother, "I'm not Erhi, I'm Erba. I'm your quiet daughter, not the star." But the words stuck in her throat like dry sand. Instead, she nodded, wiping her tears, her heart heavy. Every day, she was losing a piece of herself, and soon, she feared there would be nothing left. The whispers in Otukpo grew louder. "Look at her, living as if she's Erhi. It's not right. She's trying too hard to be her sister. Eber heard it in the market, at the well, even as she walked past the elders' huts. Some said it with pity, others with sharp tongues. But the worst was when a group of girls, Erhi's old friends, laughed behind her back. She thinks wearing Erhi's clothes makes her Erhi, they sneered. She's just a shadow. Eber tried to ignore them, but their words cut deep. That evening, she sat by the stream, her feet dangling in the cool water, her tears falling silently. Orwecho found her there, sitting like a ghost. He didn't speak, just sat beside her. After a long silence, he whispered, "You don't have to carry this alone, Eber." She stared at him, the weight of her grief pressing down. And for the first time, she said it out loud, her voice trembling. "I'm tired, Orwecho. Tired of pretending. Tired of being someone I'm not." The days grew hotter, and Eber's frustration simmered like a pot left too long on the fire. She snapped at Mama, argued with the elders, and finally, one evening, she exploded. It happened in the middle of a women's meeting, when an elder woman said, "Erhi, you must perform at the next festival again. Your sister's gift must not die." Eber stood up, her voice shaking, but loud. "Stop calling me Erhi. I'm not her. I'm Erba. My name is Erbo. And I'm not your performer, your puppet, or your memory." The compound fell into shocked silence. Mama stared at her, mouth open, and the elders murmured in disbelief. Eber's chest heaved, tears brimming, but she didn't sit down. For once, she let her pain rise to the surface, no longer buried under smiles and silence. She felt raw, exposed, but also free. For the first time in months, she was standing as herself, not as her sister's ghost. After her outburst, Eber knew she had to decide. Stay in Otukpo and let the village mold her into Erhi, or leave and find her own path. Mama sat with her that night, holding her hand, her voice soft. "I lost one daughter, Eber. I don't want to lose you too." Eber's tears fell freely, her heart torn between duty and the quiet voice inside whispering, "Go." Orwecho came the next day, offering her a chance, an apprenticeship in McCourty, a way to build something new. Ebo stared at the dust swirling in the air, her heart pounding. The choice was heavy, but it was hers. And as the sun dipped low over the hills, she whispered, almost to herself, "I will live for myself now. For Erba, not for Erhi." The wind stirred around her, carrying her words into the sky, and she felt the weight begin to lift. A new story was about to begin. Weeks after settling in McCourty, Erba received a package in the post. No name, just her own address scrawled in shaky handwriting. Inside, she found a small, weathered journal. Flipping through the pages, her heart clenched. It was Erhi's, filled with song lyrics, dreams, and entries written in hurried, excited script. But toward the end, the handwriting changed, shaky, fearful, fragmented. Eber read the words with growing dread. "I feel watched. I can't tell Mama. There's a man who says he can help, but I don't trust him." The last entry was a single line, smudged as if by tears. "If something happens, tell Eber I'm sorry." Eber sat frozen, the journal shaking in her hands. Questions flooded her mind. Who was this man? What had Erhi gotten into? The ache in her chest grew sharper. She realized Erhi's story wasn't over. Not for her, not for Mama, and not for the village. The truth about Erhi's death was a shadow still hanging over them all. Back in Otukpo, Mama's days passed slowly, her face lined with grief and years of quiet pain. She often sat outside, staring into the distance, her eyes lost in thoughts no one could read. Airburst letters brought her comfort, but they also deepened the ache. One day, she sat with the letter Erbur had sent back, Erhi's last words in her hands. She wept quietly, clutching the pages to her chest, whispering, "What happened to you, my child?" Villagers still whispered, of course. Some said Erhi had fallen into bad company. Others spoke of dark things, of debts unpaid and promises broken. But no one knew for sure. And Mama, though her heart was breaking, kept her questions locked in her chest like a secret she wasn't ready to face. The pain was too raw, the answers too far away. But she knew one thing: Erbur had survived, and that was a reason to hold on. Sitting in her small room in McCourty, Erbur stared at the journal, the unanswered questions pressing down on her like a heavy blanket. She traced the lines of Erhi's writing, her heart pounding. There were names mentioned, half-spelled incomplete. A club's name, a man's initials. It wasn't much, but it was something. The old fear stirred in her chest, but something else burned brighter: determination. Erbur whispered to herself, "I will find out the truth. For her, for me, for all of us." She folded the journal carefully and placed it in a box. The decision was clear. She would not let Erhi's story end in whispers and half-truths. One day, she would return to Otukpo, not just as Erbur the twin, but as a woman who carried her own name, her own voice, and her sister's memory. Not as a burden, but as a mission. The road ahead was long, but she was no longer afraid to walk it. Erbur began to write, not just in letters to Mama, but in a small notebook of her own. She wrote about Erhi, about their childhood, about the love and the loss, and the weight of being the twin who stayed. Erbur's story wasn't just hers. It was the story of many. And in telling it, she felt something shift. Like the wound was still there, but it was no longer bleeding. One night, Orwecho sat across from her and said quietly, "You're stronger than you know, Erbur, and your story isn't over." His words stayed with her, lingering like the scent of rain on dry earth. Erbur realized then that even though Erhi was gone, their story was still unfolding. There was more to uncover, more to say, and maybe, just maybe, more justice to find. As the sun set over McCourty, Erbur sat by the river, the water catching the fading light in golden ripples. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Erhi, I don't know what happened to you, but I will find out. I will tell your story. I will tell mine too, and I will live, not as your shadow, but as your sister who loved you fiercely." Far away in Otukpo, Mama sat under the old mango tree, staring at the road, wondering if one day answers would come, and somewhere, in the folds of the past, the truth about Erhi's death waited, silent, patient, and ready to rise when the time was right. The story of Erbur and Erhi was not over. It had only just begun, and as long as Erbur's heart beats, she would keep the promise, to live for herself and to fight for the truth. Hey family, before we go, We know your heart is burning with one question. What really happened to Ehi? Her story is far from over. There are whispers in the wind, secrets buried in the dust of Otukpo, and a truth waiting to be uncovered. Was it love that led her down that path? A promise gone wrong? Or something much darker? To find out, stay connected with the echoes of old, where we breathe life into forgotten stories, and every tale leaves you hungry for more. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of this story, or the many other African folktales we have for you. Let's keep the flame burning. Let's keep the echoes alive. Until next time, my people, remember, every story is a seed. Let's plant it together. Stay tuned, stay curious, and stay with us at the echoes of old.